Buenos dias, tortillas! Soil erosion. That's one of those super important things you keep hearing about in your geography class. But let's be honest with each other for a second. Do you even really know what it is? Well, you'll know in a minute. Okay, so what is soil erosion? Soil erosion is the removal of soil components by wind or water. Soil erosion is the name given to all processes in which wind and water masses move soil particles from one place to another. These enthusiastic air and water streams then remove the uppermost layers of the soil. The uppermost part of the soil is also called the topsoil. It can be 20 to 30 centimeters deep. In arid areas, even less. Most of the nutrients are in the topsoil. It also contains a lot of humus and a lot of soil biota. These include earthworms and useful soil bacteria and fungi. These small creatures make sure that your soil is fertile by bringing and making the nutrients available to the plant's roots. In other words, the topsoil ensures good soil fertility. The problem is that soil erosion removes this topsoil, and this causes the soil to lose its fertility, which in turn negatively affects plants that would like to grow there. Okay, so soil erosion is bad for soil fertility. But not all erosion is the same. We have wind erosion and then we have water erosion. With wind erosion, the wind displaces the soil. This can result in violent sandstorms. If you feel like it, just Google the Dust Bowl. This region in the US has a landscape that was completely devastated by sandstorms in the 1930s. Wind erosion occurs in places where wind can blow without getting slowed down. Just imagine a farmer who chops down all the trees and bushes on his field. Now the wind can easily sweep over the field and carry away the soil particles. So, don't mess with the trees and hedges in your garden. You don't want to ruin the nice little flower beds. Here, it makes a crucial difference whether or not the wind is slowed down. Then, there's one more thing to consider: the properties of the soil. Dry soil is much more susceptible to wind erosion than moist soil. Keep this in mind, it's important later on. And then there's the structure of the soil. Fine grains of soil blow away more easily than big grains. Loose soils, for example, consist of very fine grains and are therefore highly susceptible to erosion. Okay, we've blown through wind erosion. Now let's segue into water erosion. Water erosion is caused by heavy rainfall, which then washes away the soil. Deep gullies form, which can even turn into gorges, like here. This effect is particularly pronounced with heavy rainfall and in hilly areas. When water pummels down a hill, it can tear away topsoil with much more power. The water builds up enormous speed, just like you do when you roll down the mountain on your bike. Another problem is dammed up water or waterlogging. This means that water does not seep into the ground as quickly but accumulates on the surface. When this happens, larger water flows are formed. This waterlogging often occurs in soils with high clay content and in soils that have been compacted by heavy machines carrying loads. Okay, if you're looking at an area with many hills or clayey soil in class, the alarm bells should start to ring immediately. Caution! Water erosion. Okay, so there's wind erosion and water erosion. They each have their own risk factors. However, there's another very important thing to consider with both types of erosion: the soil cover, in other words, the plants on the ground. The more the soil is covered with plants, the better it is protected against erosion. Plants protect the soil from drying out by providing shade, and damp soil does not blow away as easily as dry soil. Therefore, soil should always be optimally covered. Roots of plants are also very important. They cling to the soil, which prevents the soil from slipping away. Then, it is also important to look at the type of plants that are growing on the soil. Corn, for example, is sown into the soil with a large space left between each row. This means that spaces between each row of plants are quite large. And then the sun is beaming down on it, especially in early summer when the plants are not yet so big. When the soil dries out, it is easier for the wind to carry soil particles away. This is not the case with grasses, for example. They very quickly cover the entire soil. The roots of grasses also penetrate the soil even better. Very clever farmers, therefore, also sow grass in the gaps between rows of corn to prevent erosion. This system is called undersowing or catch crops. In this case, the grass is the undersown crop of the corn. There are still other possibilities to cover the bare soil. The farmer usually cannot use the whole plant, but only the grains, tubers, beans or pods. What happens with the rest? Well, he can just leave it on the field, just like the straw of grain. This also protects against erosion. In addition, to prevent erosion, farmers can plant such plants that grow when the main crop, for example grain, is harvested and the field is fallow. They are also called cover crops. Another plant is sown which quickly covers the soil and makes sure that the sun does not dry it out. Okay, let's recap real quick. Soil erosion is the erosion of soil by wind and water. The fertile topsoil is removed, which in turn reduces soil fertility. Then, just remember the two types of erosion: wind erosion and water erosion. Clever students will probably also remember some risk factors and countermeasures for soil erosion. Here, you can find 3 short overviews. First, risk factors and countermeasures for wind erosion. Then, let's look at the same for water erosion. And we round everything off with a general overview of countermeasures. Just press stop if you want to jot them down. See you next time!